Welcome to the Morning Energy Show, where we dive deep into the strategies driving the solar industry forward. Today, we're excited to sit down with Abby Buchmiller, a leader known for her expertise in scaling businesses, fostering growth, and achieving operational excellence in renewable energy. Abby shares her insights on building efficient systems, overcoming growth challenges, and setting up solar companies for long-term success. And now, here's your host, Jake Hess.
Abby Buchmiller, thank you for coming on the Morning Energy Show. I have been following you for years, and I've only seen you do major things in this industry. You have scaled some very large businesses, and you have also helped several other businesses scale. I know that they've hired you as a mentor before, so thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Jake. I am so excited to be on the Morning Energy Show today. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, good. I'm glad you have been, because I have some pretty big questions for you coming up here. We have quite a bit to go over. You ready for this?
I'm so ready.
My first question to you is kind of what I just talked about. How do you scale businesses so quickly, especially at the level that you do?
I love this question so much. I feel like scaling a business is something that I could talk about for a long time. So cut me off if you need to. But Radical is actually the third business that I'm involved in scaling activity that I've scaled. And I think first and foremost, I want to go down this tangent of a lot of people bring up business scaling and they think, how do you grow a business, right? Or how do you grow revenue? When scaling really is so much more than that, right? Scaling is really more of an operational activity. Scaling means that you're essentially setting up a business to be able to take on multipliers of revenue and be able to produce a similar result and not increase your costs sort of at the same clip, right? So you're setting your company up to be able to take on growth and to do so very profitably, efficiently, etc. So that's why I really geek out about scaling, right? Is I think that there's a scalable mindset that you can take to the table when you're starting up a business. And, first and foremost, I think if you ever heard the concept that if you've seen something, if you've witnessed something, it's so much easier to recreate it, right? It's like, I want to go to the moon, but I've never seen a rocket ship. It's pretty hard for you to just solely on creativity or imagination alone sort of get there, right? But once you've been around certain people, that have the things that you want, or once you've been in a business in this specific example, and you've been fully entrenched in scaling a business and doing so maybe even the hard ways, once you've seen it, your brain really sort of plans with that in mind. And once you've seen something, you can really achieve it. It's kind of like a muscle memory is really probably the best way that I would explain it.
Those are big questions, because there's so many people that start a business in this industry, many people that you and I know. But it's usually like maybe one or two employees and a team of 10 sales reps. So yeah, I do want to know, like, even all of us have seen a rocket, or all of us have seen major organizations within the solar industry. So I am curious to know what sets your thinking apart on starting a business with one or two employees and 10 sales reps versus hundreds of employees and thousands of sales reps.
Right. I love that you called out team, because, the most important thing that you need to scale any business is the right team. And, what I know about myself really well is that if I were all alone on an island, I could probably work myself to death and everybody would congratulate me, but I would not be able to scale businesses the way that I have. I know that I am really good at playing somewhat of a visionary role, sometimes locking my door and getting the hard shit done, working like crazy. But in my particular case, I love to keep a COO next to me that is a sledgehammer, that can take a vision, understand it, communicate it well, and just, go to town sort of building. That's one of the many key people and personality styles that I know that having around me and complementing some of my weaknesses is really key to get a company up and off the ground. But the next, thought that I have when you talk about revenue is at Radical, we started from day one building a recurring revenue model, which is, it's truly incredible. And it's something that I wish that I had known more about in previous businesses and or been maybe a little more bullish on. The concept of, if I can get a client to, have a relationship with me and spend money with me one time, how can I create a path for a long-term relationship that's fruitful for both and just ensure that the revenue is recurring? Because if you're giving the business, the lifeline and the life support that it needs constantly to grow, you have the confidence to be putting the people in place and constantly be putting the building blocks there to find that really quick growth.
Well, certainly business is already complex to start. Everyone knows, it's got its challenges. And I hope I'm not being too blunt in asking this, but you're a woman in the workplace, and I'm just going to read it here. Being a woman in the working force at the level that you are is said to have its pros and cons. How have you done this? How has this affected you, and how have you scaled this quickly with those kinds of challenges, if there were any?
This has been a fun one for me. When I first had my CEO gig where I started to have people interested in my story and recognize me, I think this was the first and only question that people would ask. So I am very familiar with this question, and I've even wrestled with, have I answered it well? Are the women that I know and love proud of the way that I answered this question? I'll kind of put it that way. And I don't know that they are, but here's my answer.
Okay.
My answer that still feels after 20 years in business, tried and true and really authentic to me, is that I think that much like any other reason that you can look for and find to hinder yourself, being a woman in a male-run industry can be one of those. Said another way, I genuinely believe, or what has served me best, is not giving it a lot of attention. I just genuinely haven't. I haven't thought about it much. But I think, the things that make me unique and creative and powerful, and all of my weak spots, and there's a ton of them, they're the things that I need to stay focused on every day to show up and be the best version of myself and the best, that I can be for those around me. And I don't see them categorized as male or female. I really I don't. But I think ultimately the mindset that keeps me empowered is, what can I focus on that is within my realm of control? And that is it, is how do I better myself constantly? How do I learn from those around me? How do I become an excellent communicator, which sometimes means vouching for my own needs appropriately, right? And there's so much room for all of us to better and grow ourselves and care for those around us. But I think to land the plane on this, the biggest complaint that I hear from women a lot, which is such a valid one, is that I'm not seen and I'm not given the opportunities. And, it may be because I'm a woman. And, maybe there's been some of that in my experience that I, again, haven't really highlighted. But I will tell you that I've taken the very forceful approach that if there's something in this world that you wish existed, create it. I have created for myself the opportunities that I've wanted and that I know that I deserve and that I can step into. And, I've governed myself accordingly. So that would be my advice.
That was beautiful. And you have clearly proven that you're capable of doing that. Obviously, we've seen it many times over the years. And as you said, you've done it with 3 businesses now. But, I guess for me, despite having the mindset that I do, sometimes external influences or external things that happen can be wearing on me and put me in certain moods or make me doubt myself at times. Has that ever happened to you, or how do you feel when that happens, if it does happen?
Oh, absolutely. I think that everybody suffers from, a identity crisis. What's the word I'm thinking of? Everybody has self-doubt, and my recent experiences in business have taken what cracks of self-doubt I had and blown them wide open. From going through an extremely public, massive failure and, having to continue showing up every day. I think that there's this gift that was given to me, and through this process and losing a big business and having to fail really hard and rebuild myself. And that gift was a really long list of things, but it helped me get to know myself better. And it really helped me learn what my ego is and what its driving force is. And I'm probably getting off topic from the question that you asked, but I absolutely eat shit, have eaten shit. I absolutely doubt myself and feel like, some days I'm not cut out for it. And then, again, when you're forced to get really serious about what do you want to build when you're rebuilding and your resources are gone and you're sort of just in a puddle with yourself, I think it's a really good time to get in tune with what's important to you and what you want to create for yourself and what kind of life you want to create. And it's a good opportunity to suck it up and just keep moving forward and have confidence and faith in yourself and your own abilities. And it takes you further than you'd think.
That seems like a very similar answer to the previous one on how do you scale so quickly. And from what I'm gathering, you just, one of your gifts, because you do have many, but one of your gifts is the ability not to focus so much on the negative, it sounds like, and to focus on what your strengths are, and kind of cast the rest into shade and focus on the light.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. You do the same thing when people do that to you, whether they're not treating you appropriately because your women are not taking you as seriously, whether you're scaling a business, dealing with the troublesome difficulties that you did with Empire. That's a tremendous gift, and it's a big lesson. Is there any advice that you would give to anybody watching this surrounding that?
Yeah, lots of advice.
How do you focus so much on the positive things when so many negative things can be coming at you at that level?
It's not really, the easiest, but I wouldn't also say, this is my kumbaya moment. Some of it comes from a space of when you get really, tapped into how you operate. Sometimes I admittedly operate from a space of fear, and I recognize that about myself, and I always want to combat that. But when you feel as though you are not empowered in a situation, when you feel powerless, there's not a single feeling in the world worse than that, right? And sometimes focusing on what is within my realm of control brings you back into that space of power. We just cannot in this life avoid all of the different things that are meant to knock us off of our path and challenge us. And what is a great exercise that everybody can take on and do today that will serve you very well when everybody's, got this chance coming and when you're at rock bottom. It is taking the opportunity to look around and say, what is in this experience for me? What can I take from it? Again, how can I be in control moving forward? Because I certainly can't control everything that's going to happen to me in this life. Loss, challenge, like we just don't know. And what you can control is continuing to show up for the people around you. You can control taking care of yourself. You can control proving to yourself that you have a very deep and great worth, and proving that to yourself, not by lying to yourself or being delusional, but by challenging yourself and showing up to challenges and watching what you're capable of and going, wow, that was great, right? Like every single one of us can do this every single day by, I don't know, treating yourself even a little bit like a parent at times, right? Like, wow, that was incredible that you did that. What else can we challenge you with today, right?
Right. Thank you for opening up and saying all of that. It's not easy to open up and tell everyone the inner workings of your mind. I want to probe a little bit further on that, if you're allowing me to go into the emotional side of things.
I don't think there's anything off limits with me.
All right. We know that we went through some struggles in the industry, and we've seen a lot of our friends in the industry go through some struggles with their businesses. And you mentioned earlier that you went through those struggles. I think that on a large and very public scale, as you said, you were one of the first to be hit with these types of things. So how are individuals who may be facing bankruptcy navigating their emotions, and what mindset has helped you find resilience in a path forward during such challenging times?
Bankruptcy is the entire process, losing a business, losing everything that you've built. I think we all go into business knowing that it's a total risk, but until that price has to be paid, you don't really understand what that means, which is why, you're having so much fun your first time in business. But yes, bankruptcy is a total loss, and it is not just a financial loss. It is a loss of identity. It is a loss of confidence. So many things that, made you, suddenly you just don't know anymore. I've spoken to so many others who have gone through this process that can relate to that one fact. Who am I now? When I, had this business that my entire identity was wrapped up in, and my identity was being a successful entrepreneur, who am I now? And, you probably hear me say this a lot of people do, but I genuinely mean it so much. So I'm going to go down this path again, but humility is an incredible gift. And I think that understanding where your ego is at play and what you're doing, this is not, I think that if people asked me back then, were you operating a business from a space of, your own ego or serving your own needs and channeling that into a business, I would have said, absolutely not. I run my business on how do I bless the lives of others? How do I bless my teammates? How can we change the world? Doing these really fun things, which solar is, so great for. But when it all is lost and you're left with what's left, you realize again that it can be your entire identity and that you are kind of left just lost and confused and kind of without hope. And so I think allowing the space for all of those emotions is important because as a human, not experiencing that part of it is just silly. And also, again, I think there's something here for all of us. I think there's a reason that you can go through that and come out stronger and better. I genuinely believe it. But when you dismantle, why am I doing the things that I am doing and what do I want to build again and why, you realize that letting go of what you think you want or what your ego might be creating, letting go of what other people think of you allows you this freedom to suddenly say, how can I be very purposeful in creating something that is genuinely aligned with making me happy, right? Because sometimes when we listen to our ego, we're going, we want really big numbers. We want millions in revenue. We want our face on a magazine. I'm looking at my face on a magazine right here. That's really old.
Congratulations. The Nevada one?
No, this is a different one.
All right.
That one I don't have. But once you get there and you achieve these things that your ego is driving you so hard towards, oftentimes, you've heard the story a million times, it can be very empty. And what's wrong with me? There's not this thing here I thought that I was going to gain, right? It's just not there. And then when the whole thing crumbles down around you, it's just a really good wake up call of what was I doing that I thought was going to make me happy that didn't. And now that it's taken away from me, there's this blessing of how do I create something that genuinely is going to make me happy? And who am I really and what really does make me happy? And so you can take this quiet emptiness when your phone's not ringing and you're not relevant and maybe you don't have any friends left and you can use that opportunity to rebuild yourself kind of piece by piece. And that's definitely.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That must have been a very difficult time. And, like we talked about, people are going through that now. Who did you find the most solace in talking with about this kind of stuff? Was it other people that had gone through it or other people that were doing well? Who did you surround yourself with to get through it, even though you did feel alone? Was there anyone around that got you through this?
There absolutely was. I had a few friends in very high places, if you will, who immediately gave me the message that didn't sit well at the time, but eventually served me well. And it was, congratulations, you're part of a very small 1%er club. And anybody that with real success absolutely has gone through what you're going through right now. So Keep your chin up through that. And I will share that message with all of you because that is true. It doesn't change it from being horrific, but it is the truth. And the lessons that you gained and learned from the top are great. And I still use those and carry them with me today. And the lessons I learned from the bottom are a brand new set of lessons that I just didn't have before. And it gives you this, sort of unstoppable feeling at times. It's really exciting. People who were there for me, I had some complete strangers that reached out and said, I feel like I can help you and be there for you, which was really touching.
I'll bet that felt great. Yeah.
It was incredible. People that I will absolutely never, ever forget. And, and then I had my friends who, you have your friends, you think your friends that are gone. And then you have your friends that you think are friends who were there in a really big way. And you were always one of those for me, having my back. And so, how much I appreciate you, but I'll say it publicly that I do. And there's definitely a list of people like that who've been, regardless of how it may look to them, have chosen to build me up when it could have been very easy to do what a lot of others were doing, which was tear me down. And it's great. It's nice and it's helpful. And so when my phone has rang over the past, 3 or 4 years, when the industry has been going through so much challenge, and I see that it's a name that I know, but I haven't heard from for a while, my gut kind of tells me, I think they're going through a tough time. And the fact that I've become the phone number to call is that solace that you're talking about. I didn't necessarily have a lot of people to call who had been through it myself, but
they have you to call now.
the ability
Oh
to
my
be that
goodness.
person has been really healing for me. You know, to pour all the love and encouragement that I had to kind of dig up and pour into myself at times. You know, it's for something. Everything's for something, right?
That is why you're one of my favorite leaders in this entire space, because you just keep showing up. You've been through it, and now you're going to be there for other people, despite how difficult that was for you, and scaling other businesses. It's pretty incredible what you're able to take on, Abby. You have been through so much in this space, as we just talked about, the ups and the downs, what we've referred to as the solar coaster. And I know that term is thrown around loosely and in fun, but it is impactful when you go through the polarizing sides that you have, the tremendous upside and the debilitating downside, right? But when you did come back in a big way, when you decided to come back and show the industry what you were made of and how tough you were, you took a passion towards site surveys of all things. Why are you so passionate about surveys? So let me ask you this: of all of the ways you could impact businesses in the solar industry, what is it about site surveys that made you passionate enough to build a business around them?
I love that you asked me this question. It's twofold, right? I think if we talk about surveys, no legitimate company in the space, no company that's, you know, to be taken seriously is skipping this process. It really is that important. Investing in surveys is investing in customers. It's investing in the longevity and future of your business. But to kind of put that aside, I don't think the passion going into it was, man, surveys are it. Like, this is my passion. It's not at all. We as a team are really passionate about using tech enablement, really just rethinking how home services work and how products are delivered. And you know, for us back in Empire days, when I say us, like the founding team here is very much a team that was engaged at Empire and at the forefront of pushing the envelope. And how do we change the norm? How do we change the client experience? How do we make having a home services project done a positive experience, one that people want to talk about? And it's just such an untapped space. And I come from contractors, electrical contractors on both sides, and you know, there's a stigma that bothers me that it's sort of a devalued space, or has been. A lot of people didn't get into it, and you know, those that are now getting into the industries are poised to be making the big money, which I love. But it's a source of pride for me. The builders, the contractors, everyone in this, like, those are my people. I love it. But I look at the way that it's been delivered, and I see these companies that are fantastic builders, and they don't know how to market themselves, or they don't know how to get business, and they don't know how to necessarily have the finesse and fine-tuning the experience to the customer, because they're really just good at what they're good at, which is building something amazing, beautiful, and fixing stuff, right? Which is so important. So that's my passion in a nutshell, more so than site surveys. And when we at Empire were at our largest scale, we built a foolproof process for surveys that delivered raving fans on the survey process. We knew that people loved it. We knew that it was different. We knew that we had sort of a winning recipe, if you will. And so the easy lean in for surveys is, it's a tough business to get right. If you look at, you know, surveys as a micro business or a micro operations, it's a tough one to get right at scale. And it also can make or break what you're doing downline. So many people don't put the value or recognize that what you're putting in up front is really going to adjust, or it's going to predict what you're getting in the back end, as far as if your jobs are profitable, if they're successful, etc. And so, yes, there's a passion behind it. Yes, it's important. Also, yes, we've worked out kinks and we know how to do it really, really well. And so Radical was birthed with, let's lean in with surveys and let's continue to blow this model up from bringing, you know, a new thought process, which is shared economy and gig economy models, into solar, which is just a no-brainer. We're trying to operate, you know, in 6-7 different states, follow these different solar incentives all over the country. It's complex, and we don't talk enough about how complex it is. And so, you know, solving those problems in a new and unique way is the passion.
I have heard Steve talk about that a little bit. In fact, in some of your radical promotions, suggest that. Oh my goodness, I'm screwing up on you, Abby. Sean, edit this part out too. I'm marking it 24:39. Goodness, this is the first time I've done this. All right.
Am I going too hard? Am I making it hard for you?
No. I have heard Steve talk about site surveys and how much they can actually save money down the line for businesses. And to your point, that people aren't spending the focus and attention on that they necessarily need. I've heard both of you say that site surveys alone can make or break an account. Like it can make it profitable or it can make it not profitable. You can make major mistakes in the business. And from what I understand from Steve and yourself, it all comes down to the site survey. So I have a question for you leading into that. Radical promotion suggests there are only slightly higher upfront costs. Oh, my goodness. Radical promotion suggests there only slightly higher upfront costs lead to significant net savings for businesses. How do you view the balance between the initial investment and the long-term savings?
That's a fantastic question. And I actually love that you asked that. So the question is balancing the upfront cost or a perceived upfront cost, right? And I think to put it very, very simply, I would say it's lesser as an upfront higher cost investment. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But the most important piece here is that it is a fixed cost. You're converting something that went from a variable cost, meaning what sort of overhead is it going to take for me to achieve this? And you're sort of riding those waves. We'll kind of get on that back to that in a minute, but you're converting that into a fixed cost. And so when we apply that logic to a small startup business, I'm sure that you're ultra familiar because you get tapped in consulting with these businesses a lot. Businesses, when they're very small, don't really have a big budget to do everything right, or as well as they can. And so with a fixed cost site survey that is very extensive and is, ensuring that you don't have problems down the line, is a great investment, if you will, applying a fixed cost to it is similar to getting a fractional CFO. I don't necessarily have the money to bring in that kind of heavy hitter here in this process, but you can control what you're purchasing from a fractional CFO without bringing them on full-time, right? Without incurring that entire cost. And you're fixing that cost, on an individual level. Fast forward to a business that's maybe scaling or trying to get into different markets. You're now playing a little bit of a game of Russian roulette, right? Like in some areas where you have the right density, the right number of crews, the right staff, your overhead and your sales are coming in nice and consistent, your costs are going to be lower. If you're at the beginning, costs are going to be higher. And then once you're trying to scale, your costs can be completely out of line. And I think the biggest problem today with all solar companies is that there's a lack of predictability on what you're going to profit at the end of the day. And if you're working your pricing model backwards, which, oh my world, speaking of what I've learned since back in Empire days, working different pricing methodologies backwards has been just this obsession of mine. And when you really get into it and you recognize the holes that so many different solar companies are just walking through with massive stakes and not seeing it, it really is crazy. But when you're operating at scale and you just simply aren't sure if you're profitable or not, your jobs can be coming in and things look great and you can be losing money because your overhead is just a little bit unpredictable, right? You've got this micro process of surveys. You've got all of your design and engineering can have all of its fluctuating overhead costs. And when you look at the entire stack all the way down, sorry, congratulations, you did not make any money. Back to the fixed cost model, you can really work your pricing strategy backwards and ensure that you have a profit at the end of the day based on having a fixed cost for this process. And I would argue for the entire stack and process. And that is massively game changing compared to what other solar EPCs have done in the past, which is roulette, roll the dice, try to cut costs later. We're moving into winter, right? You see all these EPCs cutting certain percentages of their staff and then they're going to hire them back all in a couple of months. And the waves that just creates across the business when it's just simply unnecessary. If you can have a product and service and use it when you need it, where you need it at a fixed cost.
Wow, that is interesting. The fixed cost, though, it's not profitable until you have volume and scaling volume, right? That fixed cost will go down and make it more profitable, as you're suggesting. But having the site survey component alone won't just do it immediately. You have to have volume with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what your pricing looks like, right? If you're pricing deliverables, I've worked in a certain percentage markup above what your costs are, and you know that your costs are always going to look a certain way, you can predict profitability at project number one.
Fair. Yes, that's right. Okay, so next question for you on you started the site surveys and you offered additional services. What are those services and how does it further your target audience? How does it
Oh,
further
yeah,
help your
absolutely.
target audience?
This is kind of, circling back to the original passion, which is changing the game in solar operations. So, new services that we have launched since the site survey. Site surveys are still our most popular service, but we have design and engineering, where you can essentially get the survey done and our team will produce an entire plan, send it back to you. We have another checkpoint based batch service where instead of taking it to a permit handed to you, we can actually get it to install ready. So we can provide a survey, piece rate all of the other pieces out, and deliver a project to you when it's ready to be installed by your team. Likewise, we can take it through the entire process and deliver you not only a site survey, design, an approved permit, we can actually engage the Radical network of contractors, get the project installed for you, past inspection, PTO, and handle the project. So the concept is really simple. We're taking professionals, talented people in the solar space, we're adding additional work to their workload, or with their, a lot of them are just unplugging what they're doing and plugging into our marketplace model, right? You can think of Radical as a tech to deploy boots on the ground where you need it when you need it, but you can also think of our team as your subcontractor management, which is huge. We ensure that the contractors are vetted, their quality, they have everything that they need. We make sure that when they're on your project, they're getting all of the proof, the photographic proof to make sure that all of the funding happens immediately is all handed to you again via the tech and the lift there. And we're ensuring that we're chasing them down. We know when they're coming, the homeowner knows the schedule. We're doing all of these tedious tasks so that you can stay focused on generating revenue for your business.
Well, I mean, that sounds amazing. It sounds very helpful. I just want to play the devil's advocate here.
Go ahead.
Isn't a business trusting you implicitly with their profit margins if they're allowing you to do such a crucial part of the install process? You're essentially assessing what the entire scope of the project might need and what their fixed expenses might be after that. Is that correct? The number of panels they need, essentially what it might produce with shading reports. All sorts of components are involved in this process, and this business has to trust your readings and take it to the bank.
It's a
Right?
great question.
Is that stressful? How does that work?
My answer would be that it's very custom according to each client, right? We don't take a very cookie cutter approach to that and say, we have to make all the calls and all of these are, this is, while the situation you've depicted is absolutely one of the potential situations, that's just not with every client. And so the example I would use here is if a company has a really, really strong electrical contracting background and they have the professional staff that can make these calls and ensure that the profitability is on point, you can engage Radical to just have the boots on the ground to do these different pieces. And we can merge and mesh, I mesh those two words perfectly in with your existing operations team. And likewise, if you are a sales focused company and you really just don't have the team to be able to do these sorts of things, you're going to be in a much better position to hire a team who has done solar at massive scale, identifying and working some of these things. And again, our methodology comes down to ensuring that the product is delivered at the end of the day with a efficient cost, which means no waste, but at a profitable cost for everybody in the chain, which means the contractors on our platform are excited. We're attracting quality contractors because they have opportunity to make margins that keep their business healthy. And we're really looking at this from a holistic approach, which benefits every single, spoke and cog in the wheel kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful answer. And I didn't mean it to sound like some company just has to come in and because you say you're doing it great, they just trust you. From what I understand, you have a list of things that you are promising to go over during that site survey so they can see that list and also hold you accountable. Is that right?
Absolutely. So we have a standard template that we offer that is ridiculously extensive, as you could imagine. But we also recognize that every company has their own team of, again, talented folks who have their own opinions, perspectives, and they know their own markets really well, right? So we aren't here to, we're here to complement what you're doing and to multiply what you're doing. And what I mean by that specifically, when we talk about a site survey, we have a template started that we can kick off with, but it is completely customizable to every client's needs.
Oh, okay.
We love to talk with your design and engineering team and say, hey, here's where we start. What other data and information do you need? Fantastic. We push to our agents that are able to get assigned on your project training to make sure that they are on point with those. And then our QC team is also trained. This particular client needs to have this data, and this is exactly how it needs to look. Or
I'm
the agent
sorry. That's insane. I'm sorry. How many states are you in now?
I'm probably going to botch this number. I think we're in 10.
Okay. You're in 10 states and you have taken on many, many clients. And some of the ones I've seen are massive. Some of those people are in 18 states, but you're helping with some of them. I'm sorry, but you're suggesting that you have made this service customizable for every individual business that takes you on, and you have been able to fulfill on their customer requests. That's pretty incredible. That's absolutely incredible. You found out what their operations needs. They know their market best, as you said. You found out the needs and wants of them, and you can customize it specifically for that business and have your business collect those things in an efficient manner and send them to the company.
Absolutely. I love the way that you said that, because really the value here that we're bringing is not do it our way. It is allow our processes, our technology, and our checks and balances to make sure that your way is done exactly the way that you want and delivered when and way you want it.
How do you deliver that content to them? Do you API into their systems, or how does that work?
Yeah, we absolutely have a full, well-documented API process that we can integrate within everybody. As you can imagine, as a lot of the companies do. We have a portal and platform that most of our clients have just remained in, and they treat it almost as their own operations dashboard. And we've made this, very appealing to operations teams. We've got our KPIs, our metrics, so they can automatically see exactly how agents on this side are performing for their jobs, which is visibility most of them
beautiful.
never have it within their own organization. And it really is a plug and play operations team that, again, follows your own SOPs if they exist, or suggests great ones if you don't have them. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
That is incredible. So you've gamified, you've essentially created leaderboards of efficiency metrics inside of your platform. I will bet that helps businesses and gives them a lot of peace. Do you show other businesses those metrics when you take on new clients?
They do. So within their own platform, they have access to the KPIs that are for their own performance on their own projects. We've taken the gamification a little bit further too into the contractor space, which is exciting. This has been rolled out for agents, but to perform a site survey, we've given them basically a scoring based on how the customer reviews them. It's their home. This is a serious process, and they have to love the person their home. So the first factor is, how did the client rate you? And they get
your site surveyors get reviewed by the homeowner?
Oh, absolutely. It's my favorite thing to do is watch these reviews come in, because these customers don't just give like a number. They always want to tell a story. And it encourages our agents to really, really go the extra mile, which is so cool, because if they have raving reviews and if they show up on time, meaning they don't reschedule these appointments, we are really big on firm appointments. Stuff happens, weather happens, right? But it is very imperative to us that when we make a commitment, we're there on time. And as long as these agents are following within these parameters, they get scored. They get scored for not rescheduling. Definitely no shows are a no-go. And if they have higher scores, the top 10% on the platform gets a jump on claiming these projects in their territories they come in. So we're consistently feeding the best on the platform, which just creates a really fun environment for really quality contractors to make a lot of really good money. And our clients are really happy. They're getting the best of the best.
I really like that. So you're incentivizing your site surveyors based on the reviews that they get and the metrics that they're scored on. You're incentivizing them to do good work so that they can get the projects that they want. They get first selection. That's a very smart model. I'm glad I gave you that idea. I did not. For those listening, I did not give that idea. That's just great that you do that, though. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about some of your other talents. Is that okay?
Please.
One in specific. You have an impressive ability to leverage marketing to drive significant revenue growth. Do you see yourself as a marketer, or do you describe yourself or approach yourself differently?
This is such a funny question. I may have shared this story with you in passing, but after Empire and figuring out what I wanted to do next, I had probably more people reaching out to me, wanting me to be engaged in either marketing or building their brand. Really, people saw me as a marketer. And back to that ego conversation, I did not love that. I was really bothered by that. Immediately, I thought, do you not see me as a CEO? Do you not see me as capable? I'm an entrepreneur. I can do all of these fantastic things, and you're diminishing me to a marketer, which I do not want to come across the wrong way, because I think marketers are absolute gold. And so much so that, when you have a passion for something that's natural, you see marketers, for me, it's marketing. You see marketers and you go, I'm not like them. I could never be that fantastic. But I definitely have had to get really real with myself and tap in and say, back to that, what am I building, and is it going to fulfill me and bring me happiness? I love creating. I love being in a place where I'm feeling creative. And I think that's the very best part in business. I love geeking out on the number side. I love all of the dorky stuff that we've talked about and scaling. But what really lights me up is marketing. And I don't know that I would consider myself a true marketer among marketers, because I feel like they would laugh at me. But I do love evoking emotion, telling a story, creating something that's so special to you. It's your baby and your brand, and putting it out into the world in a way that people see themselves in it and they feel connected to it. And it's just this key to scaling. It's this key to growing an incredible team, creating a movement, and putting something out there that people actually want to be a part of and they actually want to buy. And it's momentum, and it's all these beautiful things. And so I guess if that's marketing, that's me.
That was very well put. I believe that would be one of the top levels of marketing. That's what you would want, right? To invoke an emotion out of somebody.
Right.
And you are really great at it. I don't think it's outside of understanding that a CEO might do that, because why would you build a business if you didn't believe that you could do it better than someone else, or at least offer a better offer to someone, to these other businesses, right? And how do you get them to see what is in your mind? You would almost have to have that vision. And even if you brought in a marketing team, you would need to give them some sort of direction. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have recognized that some of the best CEOs I've known and that I admire and look up to, they all have their own flair, of course, but they're all really great marketers in their own right. And back to that, understanding your challenge or your strengths and your weaknesses, and bringing people around you, right, that are complementary to that. I think being a great CEO is recognizing that you need to have very opposite mindsets around you, even if it challenges your ego, to, bridge some of the gaps here. But I think my magic factor within a business is seeing everything from a 30,000 foot view, staying really, really focused, and where I can pour what's unique and different and special about me into a business, and then getting other people around me that are phenomenal at the areas that are just not as, strong strengths for me.
Well, another question for you, and this one I don't have typed up, so we're just gonna wing this one if you're okay with it. Another question for you is, you don't just focus specifically on your business. You focus on other people's. You're always giving advice. You're always helping. People call you all the time, not just about the tough points that you went through, like we talked about earlier, the bankruptcy advice. They call you for actual real advice with their businesses, and you have the time for that. You always give the time for that. How do you manage your mind to shift so quickly and focus and hone in so accurately on their business and what their issues are, while then going back to your own and raising a business to the level that you have? And why do you do that?
The how is somewhat tough. It can be really difficult to stay in that creative space. I tell other CEOs that you really need to carve out the time and space to think. It's your number one job, right? Is to think and be creative in your own way. And so it is difficult sometimes to balance that energy and where it's going. But that takes me to the why. And I think there's just something so much fun about helping businesses, entrepreneurs, again, take their message and refine it and even find it for themselves, right? Like sometimes it's digging them out of people. Why did you start this company? What is it? What does it do? Why does it exist? And there's just something really fulfilling and exciting about that process, and getting into that creative space and helping somebody find the right words to convey their message or tell their story. It's I don't know, it's just fun, right? It's fun, and it's super rewarding, because when people do come to me typically for scaling, back to the beginning of our conversation, what they're really asking is, how do I get my message in front of people? How do I get on camera, or how do I market my business? And my brain goes, 1,000 directions with, let's scale your business. But really where we need to start is, what is it? Why is it? And how do we start to curate that message and get it really, really its own legs and moving out into the world? And once you've got that, again, momentum on your side, now we can talk about the geeky side of scaling, which is structuring everything to catch everything that's going to come in if you do it right, right?
Yeah. We've talked about your ability to share that vision and that image with people, about invoking that emotion out of them. Let me ask you this: for Radical, what is that vision? What is your vision for Radical?
Oh, man. My vision for Radical is to be the new way that projects are built, specifically on a national scale. Again, it's tapping in the quality, the positive experience, clear down to the homeowners, for everyone that is engaging in home services projects. And it is the bottom line profitability, healthy margins for each of these amazing contractors to come on and build within this network of sort of like-minded individuals. It's supporting all of the people, I feel like, that are just so imperative to the process, and it's creating a platform, and through a network model. I love that you're challenging me to word this, because it's not coming out the way that I want it, but it is creating a sandbox. It is creating a platform where everyone can plug into and bring the best that they have, and lean on other professionals to have the most efficient, well-run, well-delivered product possible. But really, yeah, it's reducing the thrash and the grow and the cut from the national companies, and it's getting into new markets quickly, and it's operating very leanly. It's all those things, but it's kind of really just a no-brainer. When we look at it the way that we look at it, which is home services needs a huge revamp, and it needs it through technology, but it also needs it through thinking through old problems in a very new way operationally.
You say the word we did this, we do that. And I know that you're fortunate enough to be able to work with someone that is just as passionate about these as you. That would be your husband, Steve Buchmiller. He's widely known in the industry for being highly knowledgeable and has one of the best temperaments I've ever seen. He has this passion. How is it working? How is it working with your significant other? Because I've heard others say that we should shy away from it, yet here you are doing it beautifully multiple times.
Oh gosh, I definitely wouldn't shy away from it. If you're married and you're building a family together, I mean, there's just these key points of alignment, right, that you have to find. And being yourself in a professional setting adds another layer of complexity to it, or adds another notch there, but it really benefits all of the other areas. Steve's incredible. I love that you see him the same way that I see him. He is that powerful sledgehammer that he's a multiplier. That's exactly how I see him. You pour him onto something like gasoline, and he helps ignite something and bring it to life. And he's got a beautiful way of doing that, and people love working with him and partnering with him. At his core, he is the most ethical, selfless person that I know, sometimes to a fault where I have to nudge him and remind him to keep himself in the picture and in the equation. But he's amazing, and he's a massive part of our team, and he's such a big part of the culture and the team, and they really look to him, because this is an operations business, and this is what he lives and breathes and loves. And I think he and I we're coming up on our 21st anniversary here in a week or so.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's big time.
And we have worked together either in owning businesses, running businesses, or, working in passing for pretty much that entire time. And it's really not much different than parenting together, which is I know your strengths and I know your weaknesses and you know mine, and we got to learn how to sort of flex and fill in the gaps for each other. But we really have to cheer for each other's best interest all the time. That's how you should really be with any business partner, right? Is show each other grace, but show each other an insane amount of encouragement, and check in with each other often and see if we're still building the right things that are hopefully going to turn into the things that make us very happy individuals one day. And we get to come together, as a group, and we all get to celebrate that. But the team is all incredible besides just Steve. And they're oftentimes in the background, and my ridiculous face is out in the forefront. And I assure you that they are the magic that keeps it going every single day. They are the ones that are building this crazy dream. And we know that we're early to this, and we know that we're paving a path for how things are going to be done 2, 5, and 10, 20 years in the future. And we're playing a long game, and we're excited about it. And we are all very aligned in that vision.
I'm sorry. You think that you're early to the market with your service? That was an interesting statement you made. I want to highlight that a little bit.
I absolutely think that we're early to the market with the service based on, this has been my first time in business where I felt like I've genuinely had to create demand. In the EPC side, and you're building a project, there isn't really a creation for demand, right? That's done by the sales folks, and it still is, right? But to talk with partners and convince them in some ways, some people are very much recognizing the value of an outsource, but others are really stuck in their ways that it has to be done internally, or it can't be quality, and we can't, there's just no other way to do it. So there has been a certain factor of creating a demand within Radical and explaining this outsourcing process where a lot of people have not heard of it. But the way that we envision it, again, being in the future is very new and very different, strictly based on, again, a gig economy model and a shared resource model that just hasn't existed in the past.
Wow, that's great. When do you anticipate it would be the appropriate time where you might start to see a competitor come in because it's such a great idea?
Oh, we've had so many competitors already hitting the scene and
really? Since you've created it?
Business. Yes, and absolutely we have. And it's so
How
funny.
How does that make you feel? Is that the most aggravating thing in the world?
This is a funny one, but the space between why would you do site surveys? You're capable of more. This is such a ridiculous thing. Who cares about site surveys? The space between that being the feedback to these people are copying you, or this is, a competitive. It's like a 5-minute window. It really is.
Oh, and really?
It is. And I've seen it before. We've done it before. It was the same, in dealer space, anything we did to try to accommodate dealers. And I don't find it irritating. I think it can be stressful at times, but there's also this wave of comfort that I get when I see other people mimicking and having the same message or building a similar process that helps me know that the movement is coming, right? Because the mass adoption is there. And the more people you hear singing the same song means that we're moving into this new timeline. It's here where, the space is here where we can get to work and our model can really be used on a full scale. So if I'm the only one, Radical's the only one out here in the corner saying outsource your surveys and everybody else is doing it differently, that doesn't really help us. But if we've got this competitive landscape that's sort of moving in, now we can all start to shift the industry in a way that adoption is real and is crazy powerful. We know how big the opportunity is out there, right?
Oh, that's interesting. So instead of trailblazing and forging the path for everyone to follow, this, like you said, you're focusing right now on creating that demand. You'd be able to focus more on the quality, not that it's bad quality right now, but you'd be able to focus more on the quality of your product over others instead of just focusing on quality and forging.
Yes, I think that there is no shortage of opportunity in the build space in solar between O&M and where we've been and what we need to clean up and move forward, from all of these projects that are needing help, love, and assistance to the new build that is going to take place. There is nothing but opportunity in the contracting space and solar and so much beyond, further beyond. The Radical model is not in any way only tied to the solar industry. And so, yeah, I think hopefully I'm answering your question appropriately, but it's definitely trailblazing in that a few people have seen this idea and, getting it out into the world and paying the price to develop it and work out the kinks is can be a grind at times, and it's necessary. And having the adoption of key clients that get to work out the kinks with you and that love the process and say, now let's work on this piece together, now let's expand to this, it's really what's gotten us to this point. And so letting more and more people jump on the train of outsourcing via technology, everything that's boots on the ground, we're all moving in the right direction that I genuinely think is for the betterment of the entire industry. So it doesn't need to be just a radical thing. And it's not just a radical thing.
It's just needed.
It's just needed.
So we have talked about your services quite a bit here, but I want to talk about you have an app, don't you?
We do.
How does that work?
Yeah, so the app today is primarily focused, it's been built really, really foolproof around the survey process. So the app is engaging in-home booking for your survey appointments. So at point of close, our sales reps, our partner sales reps can jump into a live calendar and actually book appointment for their homeowner. That is, in a nutshell, that's kind of the most popular feature, right? But what's happening in the background is the app is calling out via a geofence to all of our agents that have been trained and certified on the network. Again, it's pinging some of these agents earlier if there are high scoring agents, right, to try to give them an opportunity. But it's similar to a job board. These projects are picked up and they're claimed and they're locked in. Agent says, I will definitely be there Monday morning at 8 a.m. And so it's pulling off of availability that our agents have given us, and then they're locked into a firm appointment. The technology is going to give the homeowner a photo. Here's who has accepted your appointment, or otherwise said, here's who's coming to your home. And you can see in advance who's coming. Yes. Once the appointment or once the agent is on site, the technology also provides the lift of data transfer. So this is similar to a functionality you would see with something like a company cam. Our agents can take all of the photos they need, but the template of what photos that they are needing is brought in custom based on whose survey we're on or our client's survey. So they know that they're gathering that client's data, right? So that's important. And then once we've got all the data in, we have a full functioning QC team that's reviewing all of these photos and is saying, yes, you've got the star of approval. You can now leave. We're calling this mission complete. Or this photo didn't come in clearly enough. You need some more context photos based on this custom situation at this home. Let's go ahead and get more photos of the wall where the battery's going to go, those sorts of things. As those things are lifetime loaded in, as a client, you can actually watch this going down lifetime within our tech, within our portal. Not that you would, but you certainly can. You can watch our QC talking with our agents on your project, and you can see the whole thing going down in a customer communication. You're part of it. And sales reps are also in the loop on these text messages that go out. So they're just as an important piece, obviously.
It's incredible.
We're on the same team. It's one team, one dream, right? So that's really the app in essence today. You can think of us like on the survey side or our light services. You can think of us just like ordering an Uber ride for a site survey.
Complete with the rating of the person driving you. Right?
Exactly.
Wow, that's pretty incredible, Abby. I didn't know it had gone that far on the app. And when I was selling, I would have loved to have been communicated with when that site survey was occurring.
Right.
That is a major feature for sales reps, and I'm sure they very much appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that feedback.
So I want to ask you a final question here. It's a more difficult one, but what advice would you give to someone that wants to start a business, if they were a man or if they were a woman, or just in general? What advice would you give? Would it be different for men or women, or is everything kind of wrapped up in the same?
I definitely would not say it's different whether you're a man or a woman. I would say it's very important for you to know yourself, again, your own strengths and your own weaknesses. But starting a business is something that I'm extremely opinionated on, to the point that I have, had one of the worst failures and challenges to overcome. And I tried entering the workforce, and I think I'm just unemployable. I want to build my own dream. I want to create opportunity for everybody around me. And I just want it to be done my way. And if you feel like I'm describing you, then starting your own business is probably for you. I shy away from telling too much of my horror story of what can go wrong, because there's this like beautiful, when you don't know any better, magic that you bring to a business that's I'm untouchable and everything's going to be great. And you just push, and drive. And I've had to overcome some possibly overcorrection and fear of pushing too hard and too fast. And there's kind of, I think, a fine art to all of it. But if it's something that you want, and by it, I mean freedom, ultimately freedom to create something that you think should exist and doesn't, and freedom to own your own destiny, right? If that is something that you're passionate about, don't let anybody else tell you how it should be done. Don't let anybody else get in the way of you doing it. You absolutely can, and you absolutely should. But it's not for everyone. It is hard. It will test and challenge every piece of you. And I believe that the higher that you climb, the bigger those tests and challenges keep coming. And so you sign up for that for life. Know what you're getting into. And when the bad stuff comes, let it change you, and let it, you got to decide whether you want to keep fighting and do it all over again. And for me, that answer was yes.
Wow. That was a great answer. I love that one. Abby, thank you very much for coming on the Morning Energy Show and sharing your story with us and sharing Radical with us. I think that anyone that listening to this is probably going to want to look you up. How did they get a hold of you or the services of Radical?
Absolutely. So my favorite place to connect with everyone is on two platforms, LinkedIn or on Instagram, Abby Buchmiller. Radical's easy to find. It's rdclservices.com, but I can connect you on either platform personally, and I'd love to say hello. So connect with me there.
Thank you, Abby. Thanks for joining us.
The pleasure has been mine, I promise you. Thanks, Jake.